Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or the guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Dawn Melanie. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of my series titled Managing Self. Today is November 14th, 2018, 10 days before my 46th birthday. And I think it's setting in the fact that I'm really officially closer to the side of 50 years old than I am to 40 years old. 50. 50 is half a century. Wow. Okay, so first of all, shout out to my mom. I know she's listening. Mom, I'm no longer claiming to be 39 or in holding or anything like that. I accept it, and I think it's a blessing that, God willing, your baby girl will be 46 years old this year. But that's not the end of the story. And it's definitely not the end of my story. My story, acronym MS. What a coincidence. I don't think so. Anyway, naturally I said, this isn't an end to my story. I consider it the beginning of my story. That is, like every week, I'm leading you in for my talk. My talk for approximately 27 minutes of me sharing with you, my listeners, some excerpts of my life, of how I'm managing myself with multiple sclerosis, as I have been for the past 20 years and counting. It's different every day. And like I said, these are just some examples, personal examples, because we know that MS is unpredictable. In fact, I call it the unpredictable villain. Some of us may call it the MS monster. Others may call it the MS thief. Nonetheless, we're all talking about multiple sclerosis, a chronic neurological degenerative disease. Over my 20-year course of dealing with multiple sclerosis, I've been the victim of what I deem some rather heinous crimes. About 5 weeks before, I had a major bodybuilding figure competition to compete in spring 2008. I was preparing. Here I was preparing myself to get ready to hit the stage for the show, to walk in front of thousands of spectators, thousands, to walk ever so gracefully and poised in high heels. High heels. Yes, I have MS, with a revealing bikini, showcasing my toned, tanned, oiled, and glistened athletic feminine figure. That's what I was planning for the weekend. Well, that is that weekend, about a month and a half later. Anyway, it was a fun trip. It was the competition was the NPC, or National Physique Committee Junior USA Championships, and it was held in North Carolina, and the date was May 2008. Well, just before then, like I said, the 5 weeks before the show, I lost about 83 to 87% of the vision in my right eye. Snapped, just like that, gone, and but I moved on. Anyway, that was like I said, that was May 2008, so over 10 years ago. Now, that incident where my vision left me for a bit, that was pretty sudden. And it wasn't as sudden as any of my 4 hearing losses that occurred. My first one occurred over 15 years ago. Like I said, it wasn't sudden, but it was just as daunting of a situation. I recall it was fall 2003. I had just started a new job, working as an audit consultant, no longer an auditor. I was training in California, Pleasantville. And I recall when I returned to work the following morning after we had a group dinner at a local wine gallery, it was pretty apparent, or at least not many, but some of my coworkers thought it was apparent. They thought I their perception, or I say their misconception, is they believe that I had too many samples of the wine the prior night at the dinner. But even though it was a wine gallery and, you know, sort of somewhat, I guess, all you can drink, they thought that that's what explained my unstable gait that I was displaying, but it wasn't what was going on. So it looked like that, but that's what they thought. And I didn't know what was going on at the time. You know, all I know was I was aware that I was stumbling, and I know that it seemed a little not polished, I'd say, but I didn't realize at that time that people would interpret that as being drunk. So I hate to do this, but let me do this. I'll rewind to the summer after my May 2008 show. I'm gonna go to July 2008. I was in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, and again, surely I had imbibed in too much of the abundant local libations. Right? No, I don't think so. Yeah, okay. I was staying on the Strip in Vegas at the Bellagio Hotel, and of course there's an abundance of food and drinks, but and anything is possible. You know, what stays in Vegas, or what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. However, this incident really couldn't stay in Vegas because it followed me all the way back to Texas, unfortunately. I wasn't drinking again, even though I did do some damage on the buffets. You know, we go at breakfast time and we'll leave at lunch. But the excessive consumption of food was the only excessive consumption of something that I did there. Now, after tweaking my body to present that ideal physical structure or physical stature, on the stage, unfortunately, I couldn't present it for a third time. Third time I couldn't present the body that I had trained and dieted for and prepared for. Sometimes I think about it, it's like, man, 3 times. Third verse, same as the first. And here it goes again. People were assuming that it was alcohol consumption, that was the reason that I was stumbling or somewhat looking like I had a drunken stupor on stage. You know, several people thought it was, well, some people, I mean, it was kind of funny. Some people were like, you know, I made a joke about it. People made a joke about it. My friends did. But I was like, oh yeah, blame it on the alcohol. Knowing that I hadn't had any alcohol on any of these 3 occasions, but it was kind of a joke. You know, some people could understand that better than they could understand MS. And, you know, like I said, it happened in all 3 scenarios, even though I had no alcohol in any of them. So in each of those 3 aforementioned scenarios, I didn't waste a lot of time trying to prove anything to anyone, or shall I say, explain myself. I knew that in each of the 3 situations I described, it was MS simply rearing its ugly head. I was blind, so it looked like. I was deaf, so it looked like. And I stumbled across the stage like a person who had one too many drinks, so it looked like. Sure, that was me. That's what it looked like. That was me. It was me at the time, but it wasn't really me. It was just the effects of MS. You know, I hope that wasn't all I would ever be. You know, I mean, I said some people. I've lost some senses or some things that I was able to do before, and then had MS attack or exacerbation flare up, and it hasn't returned. But fortunately, my vision returned, my hearing returned, and able to walk with a rather relatively stable gait. So, you know, I was like, oh gosh, okay, is there more? There's always more. MS can always act up again. But what I was most interested in is that I hope that this wasn't the end all of me. That this wasn't the finale. Finale. This wasn't the final scene of Dawn Melanie. That's what I hope not. And I hope that, I thought it, and I acted as so. When I say that I acted as so, I mean, I didn't just sit there and go, okay, that's it. I can't compete anymore. MS got me. It's won. I wasn't stagnant. You know, I said, I'm not going to stop my participation in an activity that I enjoy, that's actually healthy. because of MS. Of course, I'll have to change some things, and be cognizant of, well, my medication schedule, my self-medication, when I'm going to, what body part am I going to inject today? If I did 3 times a week, I need to figure out what muscle groups the needle was going into and what muscle groups I was training on those days. I just was going to accept, okay, MS1, I'm not going to do anything. But I was not then, and I don't now say, okay, I'm just going to roll over and play dead. It's not going to happen. And I saw this, especially after receiving and realizing that the positive vibes that I had sent out by my, when I did finally, my admission, here you go. I submitted my admission to a large online community of fitness folks. Earlier I said how we have a close-knit group of friends, family, our inner circle. Well, after that show in July 2008, I just went out there and I went ahead and spilled the beans, let it all out, and I let it be known to a much, much larger outer circle. And a lot of people have become friends, and it was kind of cool. It's like a weight off of my shoulder to be honest of what was going on with myself. Like I said, I started communicating with a large community of fitness folks, and that was going through some challenges with multiple sclerosis, and that I was competing, for the past, I guess it was over 5 years at that point. No one had known, but here I am, letting it be known. Okay, my last show I didn't look too good, but that's because of the challenges of MS. So now, despite my multiple sclerosis challenges, I explained my relapse and remitting type of multiple sclerosis because, sometimes I look just fine. Sometimes I walk just fine, but other times I don't. Thus, relapse and remitting. I explained I took it as an opportunity. I took it as an opportunity to explain to people who didn't really understand what multiple sclerosis is and may have had a false perception of what it is or what it's not, or surely not understand what it can be. I use it as an opportunity to share with a larger online community. Tell them about the chronic diseases, unpredictability, and that's how it affected me that day when they may have seen me, but it affects each one of us differently as a snowflake every day. Before I move on, allow me to clarify. I did not skate over my challenges, my flaws or my imperfections. I simply told it like it was, like it is. And the online community accepted that, expressing appreciation for me sharing my story, often using the term that I was an inspiration. I achieved this by sharing my progress pictures, letting them know about my, I'd say rather strict competition meal plans. We just don't wake up looking like that, competition ready. It just doesn't happen. I share my needle drama. Sometimes it's very difficult to self-inject. It never got easier for me. But I would share this. See, I'm sharing that I'm a real person. I would share the feelings that, like, I would hit a brick wall of fatigue. And yes, I would also share I literally hit a brick wall. But, not like driving, but actually, sometimes I've lost balance and actually literally hit a brick wall. So I'd share that too. Kind of like, well, hey, it was an MS moment. My point is, to this day, when someone asks, like, okay, at the gym, they're like, okay, what are you training today? I respond, I'll see what my body tells me when and if I start, but I don't know. Like I said before, third verse seems the first. Nothing's really changed with me. If I'm able to do something, I'll do it. If I can't, well, I can't. But as long as I have an ability to do something, I most certainly employ my any capability that I have to do it, and not complain about life's shortcomings by any means. Like I said, the online community that I had joined, I got such a genuine, heartfelt reception when I shared my story with everyone. It was wonderful. It showed me that people were watching and that they were listening. Like I said, I used it as an opportunity to share what MS was so that people could know, and also to share that I'm not superhuman, and none of us are. I usually post positive post after positive post after positive post on social media, but I say I found my calling after writing my first blog, titled "The Thrill of Victory, the Agony of Defeat." Defeat spelled D-E-F-E-E-T. Yes, it's when my feet weren't cooperating with me, and I think a fall happened shortly thereafter. But that was the first post, and I thought that was kind of cute or tongue-in-cheek to let people know what was going on with me at that point in time, and also just, times that they didn't even see about, maybe discussing invisible symptoms. So my point, there's no need to be perfect to inspire others, and I realized that. I was like, oh, interesting. So I now know that you can inspire people just telling them how you deal with your imperfections. You don't have to be perfect. I have MS. It doesn't have me. I'm sure you've heard that before. I know I have. I believe there's a critical difference between admission and acceptance. I admit that I have relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. I have for over the past 20 years. And it can act up, or as I said earlier, rear its ugly head. It definitely has wreaked havoc in my life over the past 2 decades. So I admit it. I have multiple sclerosis. I do have this condition. But do I accept any and all of the crap that it throws at me? No, not at all. Heck no. Definitely not me. That would be me accepting. See, I said I admit I have multiple sclerosis. Sure, clinically, empirical evidence points to the fact that I have multiple sclerosis. But me accepting it in its entirety with all of the negativity that it may lead to, I'm not going to do that. I won't do that ever. Remember, I said how I use the opportunity to talk about multiple sclerosis to educate people who may not know what it is or what it isn't or what it potentially can be. Well, see, I understand that multiple sclerosis is different for everyone. It's dynamic. Every day is different. Every person is different. And accepting every and all aspects of multiple sclerosis, well, in my personal humble opinion, I think that would be lazy on my part. That'd be kind of like me saying, okay, this is an absolute or a certainty. And I don't like those things because few things in life are certain. We're going to die. That's pretty certain. But to accept all the negative things that could happen about MS without doing anything about it, I won't. That certainty is a sheer enemy of growth. And I want to grow. I don't want MS to really just stagnate me and, I can't go on and be more. I want more. I deserve more. For this week's challenge, I ask you all to increase your power. I always speak of being your own self-advocate with your health issues, with everything. But this week, I want to encourage you all to be powerful, more powerful in doing that. Encourage you all to move forward, especially in situation of things that may seem difficult or what it appears like. Sometimes we have to ignore it. Remember, I know I've talked about oftentimes our brains, I think it's something in our prefrontal cortex, I don't know, the front of our brains. There's something in there that makes us, by human nature, resist change. So sometimes we have to ignore it or, kind of like not be a victim of our own brain to overcome what's holding us back. Oftentimes it's ourselves holding us back to make changes and get things done. So we know that our brains control a lot. Our brain controls our thoughts. And my understanding is that all people want to be happy. We all want happiness. But so often our thoughts, our desires are all manifested through our own selective actions. I want to say, yeah, I said our thoughts, our desires are manifested through our actions that we select. Actions that become second nature to us a lot of times, often as a result of repetition. Now, I have MS, but I am faced with the same basic core life decisions regardless. The same as everyone else has. And like I said, regarding competitions and stuff like that, competing, on stage, I didn't want to just put that all aside and throw in the towel, ceasing to kind of have any control of my life. I don't want to give MS the the privilege of saying it won. Also, I guess earlier this year, well, maybe about a month and a half ago, I didn't want to stop taking my the disease-modifying drug that I've been taking for the past over 8.5 years, exacerbation-free. Things are going well, but I knew because I'm now JC virus positive, and the titer has increased. I knew that if I continue taking that medication, and I later developed PML, which is the fatal brain disease, which is, my risk has gone up of developing that. I know if I continue taking that medicine, knowing that my risk of developing this deadly brain disease, if that developed, I'm sorry, but I know it would be my own fault. It would be my own fault. Or shall I say, I knew that I didn't do what I had to do to minimize the risk. So I do look at that as my own fault. In other words, I take what is this? I admit that I would have had a hand in it. I don't know how much admission I'm going to do if I was dead, but you get my point. I admit that I would have a part of the decision, and I accept that. So, not that I'm going to say, "Oh, I have it," but I'm being a grown up, or putting my big girl panties on and admitting that it's a lot based on my decision. So there it is. I admit that I'm afraid. There's fear. There's fear that I don't want to develop the brain disease PML. So, knowing that my risk has increased because I am JC virus positive, I admit I'm a chicken. I'm fearful. So, I've decided to, along with my doctor, we've made a decision to discontinue taking that medication. So right now, it's been about 6 weeks. I haven't been on any disease-modifying drug for multiple sclerosis. Looks like I've thrown in the towel, but I assure you, I have not. Right now, I'm just waiting for my body to clear any of the toxic stuff from the previous medication in before I start the new therapy. So I haven't thrown in the towel by any means. I could just say, somebody say, well, you're not doing anything. You're not even worried about it. You're not taking anything. Well, I'm eating better. I've always eaten well. It's healthy foods, minimal processed foods and things like that. No fast foods. So I am doing something. Every day I'm doing something. And like I said, I've done my research, and I've also continued to do my research and reach out to others on the medication I'll be taking, just to hear their experiences. Sharing is caring, and we learn a lot. Oftentimes not from just talking, but listening. Okay, I'm JC virus positive. I have to change my MS medications. Some people will say, "Oh man, what are you going to do now?" Or some people say, "Well, let's go celebrate. You don't have to. You're not taking the medicine, so maybe now you can have a drink now and not worry about it." That's not going to happen. I could have like a piece of a drink, like a fourth of a drink, but that's not me. So I know that I could just sit around, just wait for something to change. Like either my MS will be better if I stop taking my medication, or maybe it'll decline. It is a degenerative disease, so I understand that it's possible. I could just sit back and do nothing and just hope for the best. Hope that it's all going to be better and everything's going to change. But I doubt that's going to happen. So I figure that, well, I know something will change if I make it change. So I am doing something to make it change. That is staying on top of my medications, whether or not they're going to promote my health or whether or not they're going to be detrimental to my health, but even just potentially harmful, which, like I said, risk of developing a deadly brain disease, I think it's pretty pretty significant factor in my the direction of the course of my therapy. I've said it before, MS can be a thief, MS can be a monster, and worst of all, MS can be a liar. I know MS has tried to trick me thinking that I wasn't good enough. I've lost senses that each of our senses are precious, but MS at times, different points in my life, had me, tried to make me believe that I was less. I know this happens in other situations of life where people think that they're not good enough. Maybe they're not pretty enough, or not smart enough, not funny enough. The list goes on. But oftentimes they're just lies that, unfortunately, even our own brains tell us and get us to believe and buy into the story. So I don't want anybody out there to blame any of their problems solely on MS. If you can do something about it, and you've made an honest effort and you haven't gotten any result, but admit to any problems that you're having and address them. We're all unique. Unique as snowflakes. You've heard it 1,000 times. We all have imperfections, and that's a beautiful thing. Each of our imperfections are beautiful, but let's not blame MS or anything else for any problems that we have that we are not honestly trying to make better. It's not going to say it's going to be better 100% or it's going to be easy, but let's make an effort to make it better. Let's change it if we can. We can feel good about ourselves. Just remember, I guess, I understand, I guess, it can be very, very difficult at times, but remember that we are all different and we are all amazing. That's how God made us. We're all amazing. Plato said, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." Please don't refrain to be afraid to go into the light. This is Dawn Melanie. I thank you again for joining me today, and I do hope you'll join me and listen next week to Managing Self. Also, I'll be working towards a Q&A session, some sort of format to implement on here as well. But in the meantime, have a blessed day, have a blessed week, and hopefully you guys can be as flawsome as you can. I'm definitely flawsome. Yeah, I'm not awesome, but I'm flawsome. I have flaws. I have imperfections. I'm flawsome. Hope you all can be flawsome this week and beyond. Flawsome, an individual that embraces their flaws and knows that they're awesome regardless. Regardless. Thank you.